What you know, Alibis. Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. Good to have you here. It's Thursday, August 28th. Sorry I didn't get yesterday's part 2 out. Went and spent some time with my Grammy in the hospital. She had a procedure yesterday and was not feeling good at all last night, but she's much better today, so we are back at it. Yesterday, we left off with Sgt Corbitt on cross-exam. And essentially, they're just attacking the cell phone records and the reliability of locations and things like that. They talk about the call detail records being generated by the carriers for business purposes, and they don't provide precise geolocation for those handsets. The defense points out that the closer you are to a cell tower, the better signal and then the better location you can get. They ask if the text that Donna asked Charlie to delete, was it actually deleted? And it wasn't completely. It was still in Charlie's iCloud. They point out that you can't tell who answered the landline during all the calls they mentioned, and you don't know what was discussed between all of the parties. And there's no context of some of the text messages that took place, and the witness agrees. They call into question the drive that Sgt Corbitt recreating, saying that he had no records of any traffic conditions from 2014. He didn't factor in any stops that Donna and Harvey may have had, and they can't physically put Donna's phone at Charlie's house. The witness says that their handsets have created events at their homes, so you can say where they were. He's asked if the 7 calls between Charlie and Donna during the first trip they made to Tallahassee indicate a spike in calls, and the witness said they were not an abnormal amount of communications between the two. For the July trip, he points out that the killers were there for a 38-hour time period. And the witness says there was the potential to exchange information between all of the parties in the 38-hour time frame. They move on to the Evite invitation and say, in 2014, do you have knowledge of how that website operated? No. You can't say Donna created the Evite. The defense says you indicated Donna was not familiar with that process, and you can't say she created that invite. The witness said, I can only say she asks if her invitations have been sent, and also talks about how she entered the contacts to invite. There were hundreds of thousands of emails that they recovered in this case, by the way. The witness said he's only seen a subset of those emails that were recovered from that account. They bring up an email where Dan contacted Wendy in January of 2014 about their schedule with the kids. The defense says, are you aware there are other emails and texts between the two of them where that was modified? The witness said he's not aware of any changes. And then he's asked, how do you decide what to include in your presentation? The witness said the emails are reviewed by whoever investigated the case, and then those are given to the state attorney's office. From there, they determine what should be put in the presentations. The defense says that Wendy's phone was searched with consent and that Wendy gave a lengthy interview to law enforcement and voluntarily provided her phone. There was an overlapping call between Wendy and Donna at 8:09 a.m. on the day of the murder. The defense says it's possible that Donna called first or Wendy did. The defense asks about being able to narrow that down with getting the seconds on that report to see who actually called first. He said he could get those, but they're not on this presentation. The defense says you've been on this case since day one, and you know it's better to use records with more data than less? Yes. He asked if he's gone back to determine who called first, and he said no. But I could. The defense talks about records showing Donna got a call from the Geek Squad and calls Wendy at the same time Wendy calls her mom. They move on to that test drive the witness did in July of this year, and he asked about changes on I-95 since Dan's murder. The witness said there were no changes to the Turnpike exchange near Charlie's house, and that drive was really done because of a question about getting off that Turnpike to Charlie's. The roadway itself remains the same, but the defense asks about construction. The witness says that the route, the off-ramp, and the exchanges are the same. When asked if he looked at traffic records for 2014, he said the retention period for that time frame had been exceeded and it wasn't available. He also did not get any kind of construction records for back in 2014. The defense asks about how many lanes were on 95 between Donna's residence and Charlie's in 2014. The witness is like, I don't know. The defense says there was construction and you don't know how fast they were driving, and you can't say how long the drive would have taken. The witness says that he can give an estimate, and he used segment travel, meaning he went from their first ping to Charlie's and then from Charlie's to the hotel. The travel time from their original starting point to Charlie's was pretty much the same. Remember, they had that time gap of 36 minutes, and this is where the defense is trying to attack. But his drive from Charlie's to the hotel was pretty much within the estimate that they had presented to the court. The defense says, do you know if they had eaten dinner when they left? I don't know. How many times did they stop to go potty? Did they stop to get coffee? The witness says, I don't know, but I did. That's my kind of witness right there. Can you place Donna's handset at Charlie's residence? And the witness says, from cell pings alone? No. So the prosecution is back up for redirect. Do the text messages place Donna at Charlie's house? And the witness says, I believe the outside your house text is an indication that she was. The state says she had 1 hour and 6 minutes of unaccounted time on that drive. And where that unaccounted time for is where Charlie's house is on the drive from South Miami up to the hotel. Yes. He says that drive was done because the defense had raised some questions about this whole issue. And did Donna tell us in the text where she was? Again, the witness says outside Charlie's house. Then Charlie gave her his estimated time of arrival for 10 minutes for him to be home. They ask if they were just driving really slow on the first part of the drive, would they have needed to speed up on the second part of the drive? And he says yes. The next witness was the undercover FBI agent that approached Donna for the bump. And I have to say, it looked like Donna was super uncomfortable seeing him again in person. He posed as a gang member, and his job was to contact Donna with the goal of tickling the wires, which means stimulating conversation. They already had the wiretap in place, so he was told to approach her and see if she would talk. So he was instructed to walk up to her on the sidewalk and engage her in small discussion about why he was meeting with her and then hand the flyer. He was also told not to be overly aggressive with her. As far as the cell phone number that was on that paper, he would carry the cell phone on him if one of them were to call. He did get a call that went to voicemail, but that would not be on his end. It would do a remote recording, and somebody else would have access to that. That bump was audio and video recorded by him as well as the surveillance team. They talk about the calls made to that cell phone, which are recorded. They have one from Donna, one from Charlie, and one where the witness called the Adelson Institute. On cross, she says, I have a question. What does it mean you were portraying a gang member? How is your demeanor? How are you going to act? The witness said, I was actually very friendly, and he was told to be. The defense says, but Donna says you scared her. And the witness says, well, I'm not good looking, so. And then everybody laughs in the courtroom. She asked how was the location picked as to where he was going to approach her, and he doesn't know. He did not stay waiting for her because the investigation team did their homework and essentially figured out her pattern for that time of the afternoon. She's asked if he's aware the route she was taking was to go pick up her grandkids. Yes, but none of them were with her when this happened. The flyer had $5,000 on it, and when you spoke to her, what did you say? And he said their problem up north had been taken care of, and he knew that Katie and Tudo had been taken care of, and his brother Tato had not been. At this point, the defense attorney talks about him having a distinct accent. When he talks, he says, I speak fluent Spanish. Did you learn that? And he's like, no, I'm Spanish. You told her that Rivera had been in jail. Is that right? He said he didn't think he said that during the bump. She didn't pay you the $5,000? The witness said, don't believe she did. As of the 23rd, you had not heard from her, and at that point, you had also sent a letter. The witness said the investigation team did that, and at the time, he wasn't aware of it. She points out that by the 28th, Donna still had not called him back. And later, you called the Adelson Institute, and Donna wasn't there, so you left a message. She still doesn't call you back or pay the $5,000? No. May 4th, 2016, you sent her a text at 2:09 a.m. saying, you don't take me serious. You think I'm playing? She said, it wasn't polite, was it? And he said, I was told to say that. On May 4th, you get a call from Charlie. Yes, they did talk. The defense points out Charlie didn't offer to pay the $5,000. You tell her you know everything, and she says she's not involved. And she encouraged you to go to the authorities to get the $100,000 reward. He says yes. That was it for him. He was not shown on screen, by the way, but we could hear his voice. Next witness, Special Agent Bronstein. He's from the FBI, and I'm going to tell you right now, if Eric Clapton happens to have a love child, it would be this dude. He was the one that helped with surveillance on Charlie at Dolce Vita, that dinner with Katie. He met another agent in the parking lot, got the equipment, and then took photos of Charlie and Katie. He sat about 10 to 12 feet away from Charlie and Katie, and the bag he brought in had video equipment. He said the audio was very hard to hear. The AC was running really loud. They were paying attention to each other, so he wasn't really worried they would suspect him. The next witness, James McElveen, a forensic scientist from just down the road in Charleston, South Carolina. He was given 2 audio-visual recordings from 2 devices. One had better video and one had better audio, so he improved both. They do not alter the subject's voices, but they suppress everything else in the background as best they can. The biggest issue, it was busy. There was coffee being grinded. The position of the devices picked up noises from the kitchen. Kids were screaming. There were voices playing on a TV. And he says really easier to list what wasn't on that tape versus what was. He was also given another recording. This is from the Matsuri sushi restaurant where Charlie and Harvey met for dinner. And he also worked on a phone call. On cross, for the Matsuri footage, you enhanced an enhancement more recently. He says, no, it's not an enhancement. We put the audio to the video track. That was it. Were you given the audio of when Wendy calls my client? No. The government didn't ask you to do that, did they? No. The next witness, Brian Kendall. Back in 2016, he was a police officer and worked in the federal task force. He helped with the surveillance of Charlie related to the wiretap running simultaneously with the investigation. He recorded Charlie on April 21st, 2016. Again, this was the meeting with Harvey at the Matsuri restaurant. He said he thinks it was obvious his actions were suspicious to Harvey and Charlie, and you can see that on that video. The last witness of the day, Special Agent Sanford. He talks about how Sigfredo shot that hole in the gas line of the Prius. By the time they found the car, it had been sold to AAA, but he brings in photos of the car being examined once they found out about it with trajectory rods which showed the path of the bullet. They did not know that this had happened until Rivera told them when he was making his deal. Also, the rental car company didn't know. So he starts bringing in calls, timelines, and some text that they've selected to bring in. How I'm going to do this is I have enhanced audio with subtitles of all these wiretaps. So my goal is to put a link to each wiretap they cover in the description, because if I were to read these transcripts out, there's just no way it would fit in 1 or 2 episodes. So I'm just going to sum up what was said, and you can go listen to the full wiretap if you want. You can hear a little better than what's on the court feed. They intercepted over 10,000 calls and text in the first 2 years after Dan's murder. And I really think the purpose of what they brought in yesterday was to show that very frequently Donna would get Charlie to do her dirty work. In the first call, they talk about the house Wendy was looking to buy. They talk about Wendy and her love life with a guy named Dave. He also mentions there are other calls where they're talking about Wendy. They talk about how Wendy would be stupid not to stay with him, and Donna said Wendy needs to wake up. Charlie says he would be the better one to talk to her about this, and he tells Donna, you would get 30 seconds into your planned speech before Wendy told you to butt out of her life, and rightfully so. He says he can talk to Wendy differently. Donna says, I feel like smacking her in the head and saying, wake up, wake up. Charlie talks about what he would do, which is not date a girl with kids. The second call is that first call after the bump, and it's cryptic. Donna's really trying to avoid saying too much, but at the same time, she really can't help herself, and Charlie is color me curious, asking the same questions over and over, essentially. But Donna tells Charlie she got a paper hand-delivered to her after leaving the condo to pick up the boys. He asked if she's being sued, and she says no. At first, she thought so, but now she says she just needs to talk to him. Charlie asked, is it the IRS? And Donna says, they bug you, but no, not now. He asked if it involves other people or him, and Donna says, probably the both of us, which I think huge for the state. You probably have a good understanding of what I'm talking about. Charlie wanted to know if the paper was anonymous, and she says no, but she doesn't want to talk about it over the phone. But Charlie keeps going. He keeps asking, what is it? He asks if she's being blackmailed, and Donna says pretty much, and you hear Charlie really trying to control his curiosity and his panic. In another call after the bump, they talk about going to dinner together. Donna tells Charlie to bring money so he can take her out. Charlie tells Donna not to worry too much. He says people can write whatever they want. They mention a Yelp review, which I think is code, and then he asks about blackmail again. She says it's always a good possibility. He asked about the letter being delivered, and she said it wasn't from a process server. He asked if she would snap a picture of it to send to him, and Donna says, nope, don't want to do that. On the next call, Charlie tells Donna to be very careful and not talk about this in the apartment or anyone else, but he's asking the same questions over and over about what's on the paper. He also wants to know what they asked for. Donna said, I don't know, the TV was about $5,000. And Charlie, they asked you for $5,000? Yes. They talk about the man mentioning an ex of Charlie's, and neither one of them ask which ex he's referring to. Charlie then calls Katie, and at this point, he has kind of put two and two together about the ex being Katie. And that was it for yesterday. Sanford back on the stand today, so we'll recap later. We'll see you soon.